Progression is a staple in video games, that feeling of getting somewhere so it keeps you playing. What I want to talk about are the many ways games simulate progress. One of the most common ways to show that is by having some random little numbers go up. It's a tried and tested method that usually belongs to one of the most popular and oldest genres in gaming, RPGs. To put it simply, when you level up, a big level number increases, and then a bunch of your attributes, smaller numbers like strength or magic, also increase. Now, you've probably realized that it's just a bunch of numbers gradually getting larger. Now, who would find this fun, you ask? The answer is me. It's like a magic trick. 0 hours, level 1. Now follow the ball and oh, would you look at that, 70 hours later, you're level 60 and you've killed God with the power of friendship. RPGs are probably my most played genre. The simple act of seeing screens like this, or this, and those simple things give me this sense of accomplishment as a reward for going through battle after battle. But when numbers aren't enough, games like to go, hey, look at this shiny new thing that you got for leveling up. And most of the time, it's just new moves that range from so useful it's the only thing you'll ever use anymore, to so useless that it's not even worth the space it's taking up on your screen. But if they're feeling really fancy, they'll give you that extra push like a class change or an evolution. Ew. It makes everything look cooler. Okay, 8 times out of 10. It gives us that extra aesthetic oomph to show that our character has changed. But here's the stupid part, to even reach here you probably need even more levels, which you get from beating up even more monsters, and while most of the time it's not necessary, sometimes, if you want that shiny new look, you gotta put in those hours, you gotta start grinding. There are 2 reactions to grinding. One is, yuck, this is gross, I'm running away doing this, I'm allergic to grinding. The other is for the human whose synapses start firing once they hear a... I fall in the latter category, so when the game tells me that grinding is no longer a choice, but instead a lifestyle, I start to consider the environmental impact of exterminating the many nearby oozes of slimes and breaking the local ecosystem. But let me tell you that there's a certain type of game where grinding becomes something akin to slaving. I'm talking about RPG gotchas. Okay, short rant. For gotchas, instead of minutes or hours, it's days and months. I have to spend another day slaving my time away in the mine just so I can get the proper item I need to make this stupid little PNG marginally stronger. But this doesn't look like the correct accessory to complete the set bonus. Oh well, I guess I have to wait for my in-game energy to replenish so I can grind again. Repeat this process many times, and it wouldn't have been a lie if I said I was going to have a breakdown. So I, very wisely, stopped playing after 312 days. But anyway, what I'm saying is that levels give a simple, fun, and effective way to show your progress as the player in the form of numbers steadily increasing as your journey continues, just so long as it doesn't take a year. Something that might actually take years though are games that require mastery. So, let's move on to another form of progression. Getting good. Most common in competitive multiplayer games, this approach tells the player, hey, you suck. Usually in the form of a more skilled and elegant player beating you up and, very nicely, calling you trash and to uninstall. Though, if you're dedicated, you should pick yourself up by your bootstraps and keep playing, gradually learning the basics until you're able to play the game somewhat competently. So, in this case, instead of a few numbers going up, you actually start seeing that sweet victory screen more often, and that gives you the satisfaction that shows you that you're actually getting better. But, if you're not and you want a forbidden technique to get better, drag your friends down with you. Tell them it'll be fun, and then stop them from leaving. Their shared suffering will be your fuel to get better. But anyway, going back to mastery, I feel like one genre of game in particular is always showing you that you're learning. Fighting games. Let me tell you a story. I was playing a game called Guilty Gear Strive. I was fighting a player that always approached from the air, and then a little birdie told me, use 6P, it gives upper body invulnerability, it's an anti-air, but if you don't know, 6P is just tilting the left stick to the left or right and pressing square. But processing this new information, the next time I saw this player acting like this was a platformer, I pressed the funny button. It's working, I thought. Wow, he can't play the game anymore. I can win. And then I lost. Though, if you want a real-world example, imagine that friend who's nice but after every question they annoyingly say, who asked? Like it's still funny after the millionth time. So, the next time they say it, you just say, I did. I asked. Deadpan. No smile. And then they stopped saying it. But the point is that when I started playing right, I got that instant dopamine into my brain in the form of me actually landing my hits on this guy. It showed me that I was getting better mid-match, stating, hey, more of this and you'll actually win for once. Honestly, this is one of the best ways of showing progress in a game. When you answer, it gives instant feedback, but it has some problems. So, let's have a look at what the average person's learning curve is for these types of games. So, it starts out fine, you start learning the basics, you commit to explosive growth, and then eventually that growth's gonna slow down, and then it's gonna keep on slowing down, and eventually there's not much more you can learn, and then you flatline. You see, people usually quit around here and here. The first one is because they can't be bothered to learn the game completely. The second one is because they got hard stuck and they can't be bothered to keep playing after trying for so long to get better. The thing is, you can't get rid of the learning curve, so you can't really get rid of the problem. You have to actually like the game you're playing enough to overcome the mental hurdle of stagnating in skill. It's either that or a crippling addiction has set in and it's too late. If you want an analogy, it's like your sanity is in the last few stages of a terminal illness. The worst part is that you know you're stuck in a hell of your own making, and all I can say is, well, sorry bucko, you better be satisfied with your rank, because it's the only thing you'll have left. Speaking of addiction, a recent addiction of mine are roguelikes, or roguelites if you really want to make that distinction. Progression in roguelikes are like those weird mobile game ads where they show you going from level 1 crook to level 100 mafia boss, but they actually make you feel like you've gone from cook to mafia boss. You start out weak, but then you get your hands on the sauce, the upgrades. Your damage, mobility, survivability, utility, it all increases and enemies you thought were hard before start to seem like chumps. You start turning into a real force of nature. Now, the upgrades alone make you strong, but you know what makes you stronger? Synergies, which is to say that some upgrades mesh together so well that it's just like you found out that a human needs water to survive. Because these synergies can mean the difference between dying as a crook or thriving as a mafia boss. Let me briefly go through a few of these games' progression process, and some of my favorite synergies in these games. First of all, Hades. This is baby's first roguelike for a lot of people. Essentially what you do is collect these things called boons from various gods that allow this guy to augment his abilities. For example, you can get a boon for your attack from Zeus, and that makes it so you do extra damage and makes you zap nearby foes as well. So, what if we combine this boon with one of the fastest attacking weapons in the game, along with the boon that makes stabbing even faster? The answer is shock therapy for the whole family. Groups get electrocuted easily and it's just fun to look at. Fun synergy, good game. Next, Risk of Rain 2. Now, in this one you become as powerful as God, but be careful, otherwise you might be the one who gets to meet God. This time around, you collect items that can range from simple stat boosts to nuking everything that comes within a few meters. Best thing about this is that all your items can infinitely stack. So say you have 30 goat hooves that give you plus 14% movement speed per, you get something like this, but you're seeing is actually optimal gameplay. The enemies can't hit you if you're fast enough to give Sonic the Hedgehog an inferiority complex. Now let me show you a God run. So what happens when you get an item that increases damage and melee range combined with an item that makes an ice storm come out of you, as well as an item that shreds all enemy defenses per hit? This happens. Now I don't know if you saw, but I actually started a boss fight right around here. At which point 3 bosses with a collective 766,080 HP disintegrated when coming into contact with the ice storm. I didn't even have to attack. They were eliminated from this existence without any input from me besides moving around. This is the level of power you reach if you get past that initial hurdle of difficulty, and it creates a situation where fun is just a constant. Okay, one more. Vampire Survivors. This one is very simple, so we're gonna do it quickly. You move around while your character automatically attacks. You gain different attacks and passives when you level up by choosing items, and you level up by collecting these crystals that drop from killing enemies. Seems boring, right? But I want you to look at this. Synergy here is emphasized, as Vampire Survivors just tells you, look, this item and this item, they're supposed to go together. If they are together, your item will evolve. Getting a bunch of these evolved items is key to having a successful run. The game really picks up pace when you get around 3 or 4 of these, and you just mow down hordes of enemies all at once, saying, screw everything in this general direction, and you're just in this state of continuous joy. For me, a roguelike is just a roller coaster that just keeps on going up and up and up and up until eventually it just suddenly starts plummeting and the ride just keeps going, and so after that drop, the thrill never ends. Anyway, roguelikes really are the perfect journey from going from that little guy to an unstoppable force, making it one of the best genres that really understands what makes progressing so much fun. I have one more type of progression to talk about. That's the progression of a story. Games that really get you immersed in this world that they've created are the most effective at this. You just keep going because you want to see what's next. The beautiful environments, how the characters develop, solving mysteries that have been hovering over you since the beginning. These all motivate the player to continue their journey and take that extra step towards the ending. Getting those big reveals or heart-touching moments all lend to the sense of satisfaction that you get when you see how the story unravels. I have 2 games in particular I want to talk about, one being Return of the Obra Dinn. The entire game takes place on the ship of the Obra Dinn. Thing is, it's not going anywhere, because all its crew mysteriously disappeared at sea. Your job is to find out exactly what happened, effectively acting as air crash investigations before the 1800s. A really great thing this game does is that there is close to no hints as to how to solve the mystery. All the game tells you is how to input things into the Journal of Death and where to start. Other than that, it leaves you alone. So, if you start drowning in the torrent of mysteries, don't expect a helicopter to bail you out, because in the 1800s when you're lost at sea, nobody is coming to save you. That's why every correct answer feels like you've earned it. You slowly start to piece together this jigsaw, and when you make a discovery, you can start deducing based off of what you've come to learn. This game truly creates that vibe of piecing together a huge puzzle, and you're constantly driven by what deduction you're going to make next. Second game I wanted to talk about is Outer Wilds. To not spoil anything too much, this game is an open world where the player is stuck in a time loop where after 22 minutes your sun goes supernova. After the intro, the game goes and pushes you straight into the deep end when you're still using your floaties. Into space you go, rookie. Travel to whatever planet you want, and I really mean that. Want to go to Giant's Deep where there's no shortage of water and typhoons? No. On second thought, let's go to Brittle Hollow. Each planet has its own crazy mechanics that you have to learn in order to beat the game, and in each of them there's info pertaining to the wider universe and what the purpose of your journey really is. The game's all about getting those details and figuring out for yourself what's necessary to stop your solar system from going kaboom. Right now, I could complete the game in an instant because I've learned how from my journey, but I probably won't because I won't find the fun in it. Going through each planet again would be a formality, as I can beat the game from the get-go. For me, the real fun of this game was going through the whole solar system and just having this big realization of, I know what I have to do, and then setting out for one final foray into the wilds. There's a lot of fun to be had with these kinds of games, and it really just comes from going with the flow and seeing where the game takes you and how a world changes while you're there, while you're progressing. Hey, we finally made it to the end. I could go on, but this video is getting long, so I'll just say these final words. Progress is what makes playing games fun, whether that be leveling up, refining your mechanics in League, obliterating a horde of enemies in roguelikes, or finally getting to see the ending to this grand tale. Constantly having proof that you've taken one more step towards your goal, this is what makes games truly great.